Hi, welcome everybody. It's Parsha video time. We are with a really good friend. We just calculated we've known each other for 15 years. Dr. Eliora, you work at Hebrew University. You're a professor who teaches transitional justice, which is very pertinent to our topic today in the Parsha. You teach transitional justice, which is a collective process whereby society and victims begin to embark on a healing process. And you're also on the Beit Midrash program at Har-el, which is a co-ed Orthodox rabbinic program. You're an immense student and somebody who's taught me a great deal and also a really wonderful friend. And we're now back in the Parsha, having had Pesach, and we're in Shmini. And Shmini begins with this fascinating story of Nadav and Avihu, two brothers of Aaron, who's the high priest, who are killed for offering an eshzar, a foreign flame, a sacrifice which isn't welcome. And this is a curious aspect of our Parsha and arguably of our Torah, and also sits in this moment this week, in this day that we're currently in, which is Yom Hashoah, the Holocaust Memorial Day in Israel, and marked by lots of Jewish communities across the world. Eliora, it's a pleasure to welcome you. Say just two words of about yourself and tell us what we can do with this story of Nadav and Avihu.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for welcoming me. Well, I just want to, try to figure out what happened, why did it happen to them? And commentaries are really trying to give a lot of explanation. And this is usually a red light, right? Because when we have many rabbis coming and they're trying to explain what happened there, usually it's that they have no idea, or that it is in strong contradiction with intuitive behavior. So basically, I can list you a few of them. There is a midrash that says that basically they entered the temple, like this place, to offer this foreign fire naked, and therefore they were punished by death. Yeah, right. Not that. Other explanation is that they were drunk. They consumed alcohol to the point that they were not present in the moment of the offering. Some others said that they actually made up an halacha by, just coming up with this offering that was not in a list of the codified offering that were authorized, and that's a big faux pas. And some other commentary in Nida literature are basically saying that these two kids, Nadav and Avihu, were conceived during Nida time, and therefore they were, punished by God.
So they were conceived during a time where a man and a woman who are married are not considered appropriate because the woman is menstruating, which in Jewish law is considered to be the wrong time to be having sex. So there's lots of different explanations, which you're suggesting means that the rabbis really don't have a clue about the ethical underpinning of why Nadav and Avihu are killed, which kind of connects us, and very much connects us, with some of the questions which are raised in relationship with Shoah, which is the day that we're marking today, the Holocaust. And this is also an area of your study, an area which you specialize in many different layers. How do you connect the two stories?
Sure. So basically, I think there is a natural, will to justify rationally when we're facing an event that we don't understand. We try to bring reason or to blame, and that's very dangerous. But the rabbis do this, and it provides us with, very interesting stories. Some are very linked to the simple meaning of the text, and some are much more creative. But at the end of the day, we are offered a rationalization,
Right.
and that's pretty much what happened, I guess, in some literature, where people offered rationalization, explanation of why the Shoah happened. And some of these texts are very disturbing.
Can you give us a couple of examples for people watching of like what a rationalization would look like for the Holocaust? I mean, one of them is that in very traditional Jewish circles, and maybe in also outside of the modern era, bad events are considered punishment from God on a very simple level. Millions of Jews were killed in the Holocaust, and this can be explained as punishment. That's a rationalization. It brings up all kinds of terrifying things, both personally and communally, but it is a rationalization of the history of the Jewish community, specifically during the years of Shoah, and also in other times of persecution.
Absolutely. We have a lot of texts that are explaining that actually the Jews were killed because of the creation of liberal Judaism that happened in Germany, and therefore they were cursed by God and punished by God. We have other texts that are saying that the Jews were punished because they didn't buy into Zionism as an ideology, and they didn't move to, Eretz Israel, like the land of Israel, and therefore they paid from their lives. And Jews who moved to Israel were saved during the Shoah time. So these explanations are potentially helping people who need to rationalize and understand things, but they can be extremely problematic because they kind of set up opposition between people. They can even raise hatred. And this blame game that is happening here is very scary.
Mm. The blame game is very scary, and I think also what you're depicting is that we find ourselves much more divided, particularly inside the Jewish community, if we go down that route. The Talmud that I was, the rabbinic story that I was connected with this week, which we spoke about earlier, is this story of Moshe being transported into Rabbi Akiva's Beit Midrash, and then asking what Rabbi Akiva's reward was. And he sees, at the time of the Roman persecution, Moshe sees Rabbi Akiva being tortured, being hurt, being tortured in unmentionable ways. And God's response in this fable, kind of magical story of teleportation, says, Kachala b'machshava, that, or shtok, Kachala b'machshava, be quiet. And the loose translation is, this is the way things are, or these are the things which are inexplicable. And there's something about, there's in this week's Parsha, you have Aaron in response to this inexplicable thing that happens, that the rabbis also find it hard to explain exactly as you said, is silent. He's silent like a rock. He's dom. And there's something there for us to consider this week about this interplay between rationally trying to explain and also permitting silence to also hold space when we can't explain the story and the sadnesses in the world. Tell me what you think.
Yeah, there is Rashi, the great commentator, explained us that basically Aaron was silent because Kibel alav kilo is accepting the gzerat hamakom be'ava, like is accepting the judgment from God with love. Is kind of like, being in the moment and accepting the fact that this is it. His two sons were basically burned alive, kind of thing, right? And they were punished. But we have another input that is very interesting about commenting about this silence, because I don't want to go into the this direction of accepting passively the reality and encouraging people to react with silence when they're facing absolutely horrendous event. The Mei Shiloach, who is a Hasidic commentator, is bringing us another perspective, is saying that there is a moment of silence, not because of passivity, but because of like immense wisdom of acceptance of what the rules are, how the world has been created by God, and that death and disease and very painful aspects, imperfection, are part of the world that is created by God. And like accepting this as a given fact is helping the mourning process of what humanity is potentially, and therefore kind of prevent you from being stuck in the moment of trying to rationalize why the Shoah happened, why all these people died. And you could spend your whole life trying to figure out why, and you wouldn't have a clear answer. Here, the Meishiloach is inviting us to go beyond that stuck moment and, try to feel from the heart some kind of a resilience that will bring dynamic inside us as a humanity and us as a Jews, the resilience to heal collectively the wounds and move on toward more creativity and more meaning of life, instead of being stuck to the brainy chokhmah, intelligence, wise understanding of the reality.
It's just a beautiful explanation, and it sends a challenge for all of us, for those who have not mourned, for those who experience suffering, for those who remember today relatives and loved ones who perished in persecution and murder in the Holocaust, but also in other persecutions in many other places in the world. It gives us a real direction that silence is part of the process, speech is part of the process, and there's also some kind of part of the process which is an abandonment of an attempt to rationalize, an acknowledgement about how the world actually functions, rather than how we might very deeply desire the world to function, but is not in touch with a reality of the actual laws of the world that we live in. Eliora, you're a wonderful teacher, and we'll do this again sometime. Thank you for being with us. I'll just leave you one word to say goodbye, and we're very grateful for your teaching today.
Thank you. And yeah, I just wanted to add about the 2 minutes that we have of silence in Israel. It's a very transcendent experience to being silenced 2 minutes in the year. During the whole year, we are speaking, we are creating, we are interviewing, we are researching, we are painting, writing songs. We're dealing with the Shoah on an everyday basis here as a collective in Israel and throughout the world in diaspora. So to experience this 2 minutes of silence on Yom Hashoah is like a reverse experience of the normal. And this 2 minutes of silence serve as a collective healing of like acknowledging that we cannot make sense, we cannot understand, we just have to accept, and we should be proud of how resilient we are, and how the will to heal our wounds as a collective on that day and throughout the year is something that makes us strong as a people.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us from Jerusalem, and love to everyone. Thank you.
Bye.